We first found out that HD was in the family back in 2007. I was diagnosed in 2007 as being HD positive. This means that I have the gene, but I haven't developed in any significant symptoms of any description. My mum is early stages, and it came through her father, who passed away when I was 7. So we've known properly that it's been in the family for the past 5 years, because before that it wasn't really known in the family. When I found out about HD in 2007, obviously you're faced with a dilemma of what you do. Felicity was a young lady of 9 at that point. You've got a lot of dilemmas as to how, when and what you tell her. Because it was new to the family, we let it settle in for a year or so anyway, whilst everybody kind of got their heads around the whole thing. So it's affected, obviously, myself, my sister. It's new information from my mum, so everybody needed to understand. Flick was only 9 at that time. And it was after about a year that we thought, she needs to know. Sort of 9/10 we felt was about the right sort of age. She's sometimes is a reasonably sensible young lady.
I am.
So it took about a year after we found out before we thought, yes, we need to start introducing the subject to her. So after a year or so, decided to tell Felicity that HD was in the family. You've then got a number of dilemmas about how much you tell her, how it's going to impact her, because she's obviously now at risk. She's now got a category all of her own at risk of having HD. She's got a 50-50 chance, which has a huge impact on her life. You know, there's all sorts of different things that you have to think about. She's only 9. And we decided that she needed to know when she was about 10, and we decided to introduce it very gently and kind of let her lead the way. Obviously, one of the big things you feel is guilt. You know, it's an irrational thing. We didn't know that HD was in the family beforehand. Now suddenly I've put my daughter at risk. You feel guilty. You shouldn't, because there's nothing you can do about it. And I've always believed that if you know about something and you can understand it and get to grips with it, then it becomes less of a problem. It kind of melts away a little bit and you can deal with it. So you're torn between two things: the guilt of having brought HD into the family, even though it was there all along, coupled with not wanting to lose her innocence with all of this, combined with the fact that she needs to know at some point. And I'm fairly certain that the earlier a child is introduced to the whole idea, the better it is for them, because they go armed with the knowledge and it becomes part of every day. It's part of their life. It's not a big, huge surprise when they get much older. So you come at it from a number of different angles. Obviously, I have told her, so the important things are breaking it to her earlier rather than later. When I came to tell Felicity about HD, you have to decide what sort of approach I'm going to take and how to tell her. It does have a big impact. You don't know how somebody's going to react to the news. She's her own person. She's going to think about things quite deeply. So we thought it was going to be best to introduce her to the whole subject gently and in several stages. You can't just throw all of this at somebody of 9 or 10 years old. So we introduced it gently, gradually, but started off with my mum, her nan. You know, so we introduced the subject to her about, oh, Nanny's not very well, she's got something called Huntington's disease. And then you can start to explain what that is and why Nanny is acting the way she is, and that it's the disease and not her, and this sort of thing. So we brought her in gently so that initially it doesn't impact directly on her. The word Huntington's disease is in the family. It's now being talked about. It's around, and it's a familiar word. It's not a big shock, and it starts at that level. It starts with, it affects Nanny, and then it can affect me, and then after a time, the questions naturally come out, and we can start introducing how it affects her.
I think we was in the car on the way back from my nan's house, wasn't we? And I think I'd seen my nan a bit upset with my aunt before that, and I wanted to know why, sort of thing. As you would question, why have I just walked in on my nan being upset? And then he gradually started bringing in like, oh yeah, Nan hasn't, have you noticed Nan not being acting herself, sort of slightly? And only little things like not being able to do this, or her like one word in a sentence would be slurred or something like that. And you don't really notice it, you just think, oh, it's an accident sort of thing. And then he sort of just starts to describe it. And then I just really asked questions, and that's all he told me briefly. But then the deeper I asked questions, the more I would learn and think about it and stuff like that. When I found out about my nan having Huntington's disease, I felt, I didn't really know what to think at first. I wasn't like deeply affected by it because I didn't know the risks that it affected me until obviously my dad told me. I just thought a lot of people get illness when they're older. It's just one of the things that comes with life. I didn't really think much of it at first, no.
When it came to bringing the subject up of Flick being at risk, it was a difficult conversation to have, obviously, and it was one that happened over a number of different days, weeks, and I don't think I actually said you're definitely at risk. It wasn't one of those, right, this is it, you're at risk, you'll one day possibly have a 50-50 chance of having HD. It wasn't like that, it wasn't direct. We had sat down and talked about different aspects of Huntington's disease, about how it affects people, and I've been quite frank and quite open about how it can have different effects on different people. We'd had all of, yeah, I've been honest. I certainly didn't tell any fibs whatsoever. Didn't try and, you don't varnish the truth, but you can introduce it in a lighter, more sensitive way. And that was how I dealt with bringing in the subject of Flick being at risk, and obviously telling her that it's 50-50, and it was done over a period of time. It wasn't an out and out, and it was almost a case of telling her that when you have children, they are often, you know, I was a 50-50 risk and I happen to have it. So she almost led the conversation in saying, well, does that mean I'm at risk? And then me saying to her, yes, it means you're at risk, you have a 50-50 chance. So she led the conversation and I answered the questions for her as she asked them. So it wasn't one specific point in time when I decided that I'm going to tell her she's at risk. It was letting her find out about the disease, letting her investigate it herself, giving her the information when she asked, not covering up anything, but being straightforward with her. Because gradual. Yeah, and then gradually explaining how the risks work, and then letting her ask me the question and then giving her the answer.
When I found out I was at risk, it doesn't really sink in that much when you sort of find out. You just sort of, you gradually think about what my dad said to me and about all the different possibilities. That he did say that it would, because it affected my nan later, because she was in her 60s, it doesn't really worry me because I know that I'm not going to get it until I'm older. And when you get older, most people do get some sort of illness or something happens to you when you get older. So it didn't really bother me, but then like you do think about it, and because I have a 50% risk and you talk to your friends and like they don't, it's just, you just feel a bit like it's different for you because you do know, because you can't plan things, you don't know what's going to happen to you, whereas I know that I could have that. It's a bit different for when you get older, sort of thing. It's always at the back of your mind thinking, well, this could happen to me, but I know it won't happen to one of my friends, so it's just different.
We talk about HD as a family regularly. We're open about it. It's not obviously dinner time subject every night. It's like, oh, what do we think about HD today? It's not like that. It's just over a period of time. It's there. If somebody wants to have a chat about something or has found out something, we talk about it. Yeah, or if you suddenly think, oh, what would happen if such and such happened? We talk about it. There's no hidden, we're not trying to sweep it under the carpet or anything like that. Within the family, obviously, or within the immediate family. So in the same way, I can talk to my dad about everything, about how he feels about my mum having HD and how he's coping with her at the time.
I talk to my cousins.
And you talk to your cousins about it.
All 50%, aren't we?
Because your cousins are in the same position as you now, obviously. So we do talk about things openly. We don't hide things. You've seen some people in very advanced stages as well.
People from the HD
so
community.
We're quite open about things. We don't hide things, but it's not like it's the main subject of conversation every single day, because it's not in our face every day. My mum isn't here. We don't see the effects of it every day. So it's obviously it's different for different families, but for us it's open. It's there. It's part of the background.
I am glad that my dad told me. My cousins weren't told until like a year ago. They were told.
It was a long time, several years after you knew.
And I wasn't allowed to talk to them about it because my auntie had said that she doesn't want them to know yet, even though they're both older than me. I was 9, 10, and they must have been about 13 and 15 when they got told. So it was harder for me not being able to talk to someone my age about it at that point. But then I am glad that they wasn't at the same time, because it helps me talk to them about it. Like, if they can come and ask me questions about it as well. So I was glad I was told, because otherwise it's just like a secret from you, even though because you have a 50% chance, it affects your life a lot. And I don't want someone hiding something from me that could happen to me when I'm older.
I think we let everything settle and let everything take its own time.
I think we did it the best way.
Yeah, I'm glad we didn't rush anything. It was the same for myself, going through the testing process. At the time, it takes 6 months or whatever it takes from the first point you have contact with your GP to actually getting the result. It takes months, 6 months. That's just the nature of the process. And when you're going through that, you think, oh, for goodness sake, I just want the result. I can have. But now, looking back a few years later, you look back and you think, do you know what? I'm glad it took a long time to think about it and ask all the relevant questions and didn't rush into any decision. And it's the same with the way we've talked it through as a family. We haven't rushed anything. We've just let everything take its own time. And in that respect, I think, we probably did do the right thing. Yeah.
I think that they should have. Well, it's obviously my auntie's choice how she wants to tell her kids. It's not up to me. It's their choice. But if I was in my auntie's position, I would have told them a lot sooner, because otherwise they feel like. My cousins did actually tell me that they felt like their mum was obviously hiding something from them, but also they wanted to know. They asked me, why didn't she tell me before? Why didn't she tell me when you got told? Like, we're all in the same position. It's not just them or just me. So but I think we did it right. We did it the right way.
You think so?
Yeah.
I'd like to think so. I'm certainly glad that I told Felicity about HD. You can sort of see the type of young lady she is, and can you imagine the amount of trouble I'd be in if I'd waited until she was 18 or 19 to introduce this big subject. So it obviously depends very much on the child and how mature they are at what point, because everybody's different. every family circumstance is different, every child is different, everyone's going to react in a different way. Flick's not a hysterical sort of person, so I knew that we could have quite a sensible conversation with her, whereas other kids, younger and older, would react completely differently. So I'm glad I think personally it's the right thing to tell them younger rather than later, even when it's not directly in our faces every single day. If I was symptomatic, then obviously that would have been a completely different conversation. But I'm not, I'm just HD positive. So it's just something that needs to be introduced in the background. And I think that was the right sort of age. I probably wouldn't have introduced it much earlier, even if I'd known much earlier. It probably would have been that sort of time. Certainly no later.
Let them question it, because that's what I had to do. I did. You didn't tell me too much, but you didn't tell me too little. So I would ask a question and you'd answer it straight, honest, sort of thing. So I think that was good. So then I could think about it. And then I'd ask what I wanted to know. You wouldn't just tell me everything all at once, because I wouldn't be able to do that. I wouldn't be able to take it on very well. And
it means you don't get upset about anything. It's not too much information at any one time.
Well, obviously, it's different. It's going to do something to your life. It's changed your life, sort of thing. You're going to think about it. You might get upset. It's just natural. But it's good because I knew I could talk to him about it if I needed to. I agree that it's good to know earlier, because then you sort of grow up with it. It's just natural, comes to you. It doesn't say, because like teenagers, they think a lot more, I guess, about different things. They know more, but because it's been brought in since you was a lot younger, you're just like, yeah, I know what's going to happen. It might happen, it might not. You just sort of accept it. Whereas if you're a teenager or older, or you don't know anything, it's a lot harder to think about because it's a lot closer, and it's just
part of the background, isn't it?
It's just sort of something that it's just like, yeah, we might not. Just been brought up with it, really. So, yeah.
I think being open about HD as a family has helped us handle everything. I've seen in other families linked to mine that it's kept under wraps, and it doesn't help. It's lingering there. It's those that know it's there, and those that don't know, you think, oh, yeah, they don't know. They should.
But when they do know, they ask, well, why didn't they tell me before? Really?
And it's part of life. It's just one of those things. Life throws you the odd rough card every now and then. You just get on with it and deal with it. And if you can chat about it, it makes it disappear a little bit. It just disappears into the background, and it isn't a big deal. So I think being open about things makes life a lot easier.
But making sure that like the kids can talk to them about it is a lot more. It's better, because otherwise they think they have all these thoughts in their head. They're like, but this is going to happen to me, but you don't actually know unless you've been tested. It might not. You might be lucky, you might not. But being open about it, you can ask questions, and you would tell me straight. You would tell me what I wanted to know. You wouldn't lie about anything. I don't see the point in lying, because otherwise they'll find out one day and they'll be like, why did you lie to me?
It's all part of the trust thing, isn't it?
Yeah, you have to trust each other.